First off, Ukraine, Crimea, Belarus, all of those countries right along the edge of Russia proper used to be part of the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union broke apart. As a result, you have all of these independent countries. Now, Belarus decided that they wanted to kind of stay allied with Russia proper, and Putin went in and did a land grab on Chechnya several years back. They weren't that dumb and happy sitting there enjoying their life, and then suddenly they're back in the Soviet control. Then a couple of years ago, they went in and took Crimea, part of the Ukraine. But then, from what my understanding is that the residents of Crimea really wanted to stay with Russia. So, okay, go play with Russia. The people of Ukraine have freedom. They have a democratic election. They've gotten rid of the puppets that were being in control of the country and have a democratic election. Yes. They get Mr. Zelensky in a position of president. He stepped up to the plate and did the job. Now he is even doing a bigger job. Here is Mr. I've declared myself president of Russia for the next 30 years. First off, he doesn't want NATO countries right on his border. My understanding was Ukraine was making noises about joining NATO. Well, he's going to have more than that now, because Finland and Sweden are both considering it after he made threats on Finland and Sweden. He decided that he wants to install his puppet governments inside of Ukraine, like he has in Belarus, like he has in Chechnya. He's rebuilding the Soviet bloc that was when he first was involved, because, I mean, the man's been a spy and the KGB for a long time, so he hasn't changed his stripes. And there are questions when you look at him and he's sitting at a table on one end of a room, and his generals and his state officials are all the way on the other end of the room, 40 feet away. There's a problem there.
Oh, yeah.
Contrast that with Zelensky, who is sitting in a bunker eating dinner with members of the military, the common members of the military, in a bunker. And he refused to leave his country when the United States offered him and his family a way out, because he's a marked man. He's on the list.
I don't need a ride. I need ammunition.
That's exactly what he said. I don't need a ride. I need ammunition, weapons. And surprisingly, many countries of the European Union have come up and said, okay, here, we're giving you Stinger missiles, we're giving you Javelin missiles, we're giving you ammunition. No one will say how they are getting in, but they're getting in.
Right.
You go to the peace talks, and his whole thing is, we'll quit shelling you and we'll leave you alone if you let us put our puppet government in your country. And you just come back in the fold and everything's cool.
So do you think that Russia was emboldened by the Afghanistan withdrawal, as some are suggesting? Will China move next on Taiwan? Will Iran get a nuke?
No, he was not emboldened by Afghanistan. That didn't embolden him. From what I've been gathering, this has been his plan for a while. He grabbed Belarus, he's grabbed Chechnya, he grabbed Crimea. He tried to grab Ukraine one time, but then got pulled away. Do I think his mindset is going to translate to China? It could, because China owns Taiwan. I mean, it's a fact. So that may be the next problem. But when you come back over to the European side of Russia, I think it's pure and simple land grab, and the man has no compassion, no empathy, and he doesn't care. And that sounds like I'm describing someone else we all know and love. No empathy, no compassion, only cares about what he wants, and will do anything he can to get it. And what they're doing now are crimes against humanity.
So do you think that a former KGB officer never changes his stripes? And do you think they're going to be actually communist again as a country?
They aren't?
Well, not in name.
Not in name, but in practice they are. I don't think they'll slap the label on. They just will continue doing what they're doing, which is, oh, you're protesting our government, you're going to jail. They're even putting children in jail for protesting what's going on in Ukraine. That's a totalitarian, autocratic, communist government. Of course, their whole economy basically is collapsing.
Yeah, it's scary. It's very scary to see these things happening halfway across the world, and nobody wants to start World War III. We don't want to nuke each other into the ground.
Russia isn't that far away from our border. All you have to do is go to Alaska, Washington State, Oregon. As far as, is this the start of World War III? My personal feeling, if the free world were to go in and declare a no-fly zone over the Ukraine and start taking out planes coming out of Belarus, I think the next thing would be all-out war. And this is one of the reasons why I think we're not doing those things. We're giving them guns, ammunition, weapons, heavy weapons, but we're not. We cannot, and I would hope they understand that, we cannot go in and fight face to face. Now, if they go into Poland, look out. That's a NATO country. NATO will act. Scares me that they're near a nuclear power station. It bothers me that at any moment they could put some dirty bombs around. We don't even know if they haven't already done that. We do know, and it's not supposition anymore, that they are using weapons that are banned by the rest of the world. But you cannot use thermobaric bombs, and you cannot use cluster bombs, so to speak. So my husband told me what they were. He did 15 months in Vietnam. Yeah. So he was explaining to me what these bombs did. He also was in the Marine Corps, and he then transitioned to the Navy, so in avionics and air warfare.
So he's obviously an authority on the subject.
Well, he's got a lot of background in it. Oh, so yeah. He was telling me how the thermobaric bombs work, because I was like, well, what's that? And he told me, and it is hideous and horrendous. And looking at a school that has a single hole in the wall and every window in the entire building, which is huge, is blown out.
To switch to the home front for a moment, do you think that as a society we've been focusing too much on our own politics and our own societal ills and not enough on what's been happening beyond our own country?
Us as a people, yes. Now, the government, the military, the people who are supposed to be keeping us safe from the ills of the rest of the world, they're multitasking. They're paying attention. We didn't pay attention until it came up as the big bad wolf was at the back door. And he wasn't knocking. He was just opening the door and walking in. For the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have just been focused on the far right, the far left, the center people, the sometimes center people who like to go to the right when they should be going a little bit more to the left. Insurrection and conspiracy to commit treason coming off of a pandemic, a deadly pandemic. Part of it's pandemic stress, part of it's just stupidity. You can educate ignorance, but you can't cure stupid. we're going to nitpick on this. It's the president's fault because inflation is happening. It's the president's fault because this is happening and that is happening. When in reality, it's what was caused by the pandemic. People didn't drive during the pandemic because we all stayed home because it was too dangerous. Gas prices went down to next to nothing. Now people are driving. Well, the president's not doing anything. Well, yeah, he is. President's releasing strategic oil reserves, and so are a whole lot of other countries. Well, they should have finished the Keystone Pipeline. Y'all need to go educate yourself on that one because that wasn't going to give us any oil. It was all going out of the country. It all belonged to Canada. It was just crossing our land, and it's already had like 1,500 leaks in the part that's finished into a waterway that provided drinking water. And then it was going to cross the Ogallala Aquifer, the largest aquifer in the United States. You can't have goods and services if you don't have a supply chain that can move. The supply chain couldn't move during the pandemic, but it's starting to move now. Wait until the supply catches up with the demand. Save your shekels and pennies and rupees and whatever until you have sufficient funds to tide you over. A lot of people still can't go back to work because there's no child care. The child care facilities closed down and they've never opened back up because a lot of them had to go out of business because they couldn't afford to keep the doors open with no kids.
Not too long ago, we had the State of the Union address. Seems like a million years since then, but that's a sign of the times, I guess. But I want to get an idea of what you think the state of our union is right now. I mean, there's a lot at stake. Will Democrats handily hang on to power in the midterms, or are they facing the landslide defeat that a lot of people, even on the left, are predicting?
Well, I just read a couple polls the other day. And this landslide that the Republicans had in Virginia, Mr. Youngkin's barely hanging on to that margin of a win because people are finding out what he said ain't necessarily so. He's done quite a few things that have irked people, like write a teacher outline.
What exactly did he do?
Oh, he put in a tip line. So parents who were unhappy with something a teacher was teaching that they felt was divisive, then they could send an email to the tip line and rat the teacher out that they were teaching something divisive, and then the teacher would be investigated. I looked at that and I went, oh my God, I would have been on that line every day. I taught Darwinian evolution in a Bible Belt, so to speak, in a Southern Baptist stronghold.
I remember the story about your, I think it was a while back, but the environmental racism, and you had to...
Oh yes, I taught environmental racism. I had my students who were in the college classes looking up environmental groups and reporting on the veracity of the environmental groups' claims and their tactics in getting their points across. And they would do things like the Sea Shepherds and the Earth Liberation Front. You talk about divisive.
Right.
that was bordering on the edge. Man, I'd have been fired the next day.
Oh yeah.
But it was all things teaching kids to find sources, reliable sources, report on it, and then make up their mind whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. I think we're on the right track. I don't know if the Democrats can publicize themselves out of the hole. I think right now with the economy and inflation, I think they're going to have some problems. But here's the thing. Biden addressed funding the police. Not defund, but fund the police with the resources and training they need to protect our communities. That's a direct quote. strongest economic growth in 4 decades. That it's all positive, but when you look at it with inflation, it doesn't look so good.
It's tough to make a case for that when everyone is paying what they're paying at the gas tank, and you're seeing 10% jumps in a day.
And what you're paying in the grocery store. I mean, when you look at it, supply and demand, and if you don't demand it, then the price is going to go down. Why would you buy a car right now? If you've got a working car, keep your working car. You don't need potato chips. You might want potato chips, but hey, make it a little healthier if you don't eat the potato chips. It is what it is, and the only way the Democrats are going to survive this is by working us through it, getting us through it as quick as they can, making sure the supply chains are going, making sure things are done, looking to lower the prices of medications, allow Medicare to negotiate for medications.
Now everybody's going to be watching to see if President Biden follows through on these America First style promises and these acts of unity that he was promoting at the State of the Union.
Oh, yes. Oh, it will be under scrutiny, and if they don't follow through, then
that'll be a problem.
The hope is that he can get some bipartisan support on that.